Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next interview. I'm excited today to not only talk with a fellow marketer, entrepreneur, a person who really has deep roots in building and growing and nurturing a business, but I'm excited about the topic. I'm excited about the business because we're going to be talking about vegan dog food and we're going to talk about the journey. We're going to talk about the experience and what really our guest Laura has been up to over not just the last year, but really the foundation that she and her team have put in place to build this business, to build this brand. For many of you out there, you're either at those crossroads where you're building your business, building your brand, or maybe you're making a shift. Maybe you're making some changes just because of our current environment and everything that's going on. So I really think this interview today is going to be key for you because I find it's helpful to see insights from people who have traveled down the road before us and also insights from a female entrepreneur. I think for many of us that are out here in the space, we are experiencing different things as as female entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs. So I'm hoping we're going to jump into that as well. But before I dive into all the details about the business, the brand, and everything, let's start with a little bit of background. Let's start with the journey. Maybe, Laura, if you could just maybe introduce yourself kind of to our audience, but from the perspective of what has been this kind of, or what has been that why or that question you asked yourself as you ended up on this vegan dog food journey?
Yeah, it started many years ago. It started in about 1989. And the first thing that switched me to start to look more was at John Robbins' book, Diet from America. And at that time, I also happened to be in a really weird bookstore in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, in the prairies. And I looked and saw this book that said Vegetarian Dogs and Cats. And it was like, that's a long time ago, the end of the 80s. I was already pursuing a vegetarian lifestyle, of course, and back then didn't use the word vegan. And it stuck. And so from there, animal lover, grew up with dogs. Absolutely. Once I saw some things, I couldn't unsee it anymore. And then made the choice because I'm an unemployable person. I'm totally unemployable and I'm an entrepreneur through and through. And I knew that years later, there was nothing in the marketplace. And I knew that I needed to do something about that.
Perfect. Now, let's talk about the name because I was really intrigued when I was doing a little bit of research. And also, I just love the twist on it, with the name of Virchew. So, anyone out there that, whether you're in the market for vegan dog food or whether you're just curious about it, and also, I just think as fellow entrepreneurs, it's so important for us to support each other and learn about our businesses. I highly recommend that you not only support Laura, but learn about this journey. But let's maybe start with breaking down the name. How did you come up with the name? How did you get the twist? How did you figure it all out? Because I know for a lot of people, the name can be something that they get stuck on and they're not able to move forward.
Right. Well, it took a long time. That the first name was absolutely, wasn't that. And I knew that through the time it was just a working name. It hadn't landed fully yet. And I'm really a creative entrepreneur. I'm very much around marketing and communication and messaging. And so for me, it was so important to get that, to nail that name. And we tried throughout the years, but it was just, okay, I'll just keep developing. I'll keep sharing the story until I knew what that name would be. And it ended up that we were working with this really cool branding company. And I kept using the word virtue. Dogs teach us virtues, and my background is everything personal growth. I own my own studio, and I did personal growth training and programs for many years. In that whole realm of vegetarian nutrition as well. And I was always doing virtue card nights, women and conversational dinners, and we'd bring dinner and we'd all share it. It was vegetarian, didn't use the word vegan then, and I ended up, when I'm sitting with the gentleman who I was working with, and I kept saying virtue, and he looked at me one morning and he goes, "What about virtue?" And it just landed. It just landed. So it was not an easy journey getting to that answer and to that word, but boy, did it ever nail it. And it's
Yeah.
made such a difference in how I describe what Virchew is to people, because it's not a dog food company.
Yeah.
It's a
And
lot
I
more than that.
And I love that. I think what's really great is when you can find those names that express that emotion,
Yeah,
express that connection,
yeah.
allow you to really connect with a brand because to your point, it's bigger than that. So let's tap into that because I know some people are going to be like, well, what do you mean it's bigger than being a vegan dog food company? So let's expand on that. Can you give maybe our audience a little bit of insight into what you mean?
Right. It's not, it's so simple to say you make a dog food and you sell it, right? That's something that, of course, the old paradigm would be that. It's like, well, just make something we know they're going to eat and you sell it. I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I'm very, very much a social entrepreneur. I believe that anything that we do in business can make a massive difference. And so, I'm in the land of Lululemon. I'm in the land of Gardein. I'm in the land of Eve's. We're in the land of Daya cheese. Like the Vancouver is filled with entrepreneurs that have set out to make a difference in a social way. Whether they started it or not that way, it ended up being that. However, it is that was really important to me as somebody who was in health and wellness and very much about personal growth and making a difference. If I change, the world changes. And so for me, it was a choice to say, I can do this without it being about just dog food. This is about what we eat, what we literally put on our plate, what we literally put into our mind, and what we literally feed our dog can make a really huge difference. And so that all just culminated into everything connected for me. It wasn't just you do one thing and then get one result. As we do know, that's just not the case. The case is you do one action, it's going to cause a ripple effect to be either really extraordinary positive or it may not be. And in this case, it was like, let's just take the time to really figure out how to build an extraordinary dog food or food for dogs, I call it dog food, right through to helping people understand that literally what they're eating and what their dog is eating is changing the world.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Yeah. And I love that you're making the distinction of food for dogs because I think, what has unfortunately happened is, the way we classified food these days, sometimes, it becomes even a byproduct of our lives. We're doing something else and just eating ourselves. So food doesn't get the attention that sometimes it deserves. We don't get the time. We want it fast. We want
Yes,
this and that.
yes,
And
yes.
therefore, because of that, we've maybe allowed our standards around food to slip, and
Yeah.
when we think about everyone in our homes, everyone that we care for, especially when we have dogs or anything like that, I think it's so important that we think about the food that we are
Yes.
serving. We think about the
Yes.
impact of that food and
Mhm.
also the relationship. Food is a bonding moment for everyone
Mhm.
around the table. And I think it's
Absolutely.
so important when we're thinking through making the best choices for everyone in our household.
Yes, exactly. And animals in our homes aren't just animals in our homes. They are absolutely our companions, and they
Yeah.
absolutely become very, very close to us. And I would think even in many cases as close as another human.
Yeah.
And maybe more intimate because you can share something with a dog, cat, whatever you feel you want to share your home with. But I think, and I don't mean in ways of keeping thousands of animals around us that don't get cared for, but the other side where we are really caring for that other being in our home as if we would care for a family member. And again, that's that positive ripple effect that we cannot even possibly measure because it's intangible and yet it's real.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
and it's lasting. For many
Mhm.
of us, our companion animals are with us for 10 years, 20 years.
Mhm.
These are people that we always grow with. I even think about my
Yes.
cat. I think about how much I've grown and changed over the
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is even, based on her. So
Mhm.
I just think it's so important when we think about the food that we choose and the food that we serve.
Mhm.
So with that, let's talk about, the expansion, because I know for some people they're like, well, where can I get it? Can I order it? Where is it available? And so forth. I
Mhm.
know questions could be popping up. And then also just for individuals who, are building businesses and they're trying to get a sense of what it's like to get that distribution. Because distribution can be a very challenging thing when you have
Mhm.
that physical
Mhm.
product, and you're building partnerships. So, do you want to kind of maybe explain kind of the model? Meaning, do you go direct to consumer? Are you working through channels? I think earlier we had talked about you had some veterinarian partners. Can you give a
Mhm.
sense of, how you've built this kind of network around you? Where are you currently distributed, and then what are some of those future plans?
Right. Our goal from the very, very beginning, Stephanie, is we saw this would have been 2008, 2009 when the idea came to me. And my computer just did it. It'll cut out. We're back. Okay. Is that when it came to me, the whole idea, and my partner Gord, we said, it's direct. It's going to be direct is really, really important, and we cannot lose then the quality of the food. And so that was really important to us. And the other was veterinary partnerships. And I don't mean in the way of, and this is due respect to the whole industry, because I really respect all professionals that are out there doing their thing. We're not talking about just a representation, like being a rep and going into the vet offices and selling their food and leaving. But we're talking here about actually developing programs that become basically start as a feeding trial, but they're actually a nutrition program for that dog. And so veterinary partnerships and direct. There are ways, of course, which we're just going to begin to explore here, are business to business online partnerships. And so those, of course, would be with businesses where we have values aligned. Things here, like here in Vancouver and Canada is Vegan Supply. The owner of that owns 4 or 5 restaurants now, as well as Vegan Supply, and those are the kind of companies that we absolutely want to align with, and to see how can we play together and collaborate. However, but those are the 3 areas. So for us, we chose not to go through retail distribution, which is an entirely different monster. Once you get in there, that's a good monster to be in. The part is it's difficult, and so we didn't. Gord's background was in doing some retail, and so for him, he understood it, and we knew that was going to be potentially something we can look at down the road if we don't lose control of the quality of the food. However, the most important thing was to have a direct relationship with people. Again, because this is very important. This is nutrition for dogs. This is nutrition for these beings that we share our life with, that you can either go to the vet and pay thousands and thousands of dollars for to fix it, or is there a way that we could prevent it? And that's no different than what we're finding in the human nutrition, is that what if we prevent it? Wow, how extraordinary. Like the thousands of dollars that healthcare and time, not so much the time, of course, but the pain and the missing opportunities when we don't have our health. And that's the same thing for our dogs, because of course they consume our time when they're not well. So our goal was to do distribution that way, and our goal was to put a net, we called it, or even like a dog park around Greater Vancouver, 25-mile radius, to get a sense of what people wanted. How did that work in our veterinary ideas? That we would be, the vet would keep a sample. They give the dog a sample of our product, and then if that dog, of course, they prescribe it more or less. That dog loves it, which normally they do. Then they call us, and then we ship it to that patient client. So that's working really well. And then the other was direct online. Getting to our community. We had a large community that was growing and following us because they kept hearing about us. I kept talking about it. We're going to do this someday. Hang in there with me as I'm raising capital as a woman. And it was fun. It was not fun. It's hard. However, the outcomes have been pretty incredible. So it was just, really going right to our target community, which vegan, dog lovers, people that knew people that were really open-minded, and to really looking at a new option for dogs. So we chose those as our distribution channels. And nowadays, especially direct, there's some really, really good stuff that we can do. And so we're having beautiful relationships with our customers. We know them. We know their dog's birthday, and we know their birthday. We know exactly what their house looks like when we deliver. So we got an opportunity to really know who those people were and what they were feeling. And we're always fielding questions. Tell us more. What more can we do? That's really, really important for us. That's
I mean,
it's good.
I love the visual of, putting the dog park around Vancouver, as you said.
Yeah.
But I also love the idea that you kind of took a very strategic approach. I think for a lot of us, when we start our businesses, we're like worldwide, everyone,
I
we,
know.
we just
I
dream
wanted
so
that.
big.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
reality is, it takes time to build an audience. It takes time. And it's also so important that your customer base really knows you and you get that feedback loop. Is there anything that you found during that process that was maybe a big aha moment? And maybe for
Mm.
anyone who's listening today, if they're nervous about, being strategic, being focused, that maybe you'd recommend to them to say, they should take that route too, so that they could have some maybe big wins and also learn some things quickly and be able to better serve their customer base.
Good points and loaded answers. We could be talking about that for hours,
Yeah.
especially with regards to being a woman in business. And all that's more for me because I can obviously come from that space. I have a very, very masculine way of thinking. I am very much I'm driven. I'm an athlete. I've always gone for what I want. However, the feminine side of me is pretty strong too. And that feminine side meant I didn't have to race. I know I don't need to race. And so for those of us that did, the global vision,
Hmm.
hold that vision. God, if you've got that vision, hang on to that. The part is know that when you, like, I love the book by Stephen Pressfield, he's just brought out, it's called Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be. And so, as a writer, creator, entrepreneur, etc., sit down, do the work. And when you do the work, strategy wise, just keep doing the work, but hold that vision. You're going to get to that book. You're going to get to that business. You're going to get there. Just don't stop. The part is that if you think it's going to take 6 months, it'll probably take 3 times that. And that has been my experience. And so because we think, oh, that can get done during that time, but we have to look at all the other pieces of the puzzle that have to fit in. It can be at somebody else's, they have to be the consultant for you, or they have to do part of it. So it can be people, it can be COVID, it can be things like that that just show up out of nowhere and stop you in your tracks. So you have to be really prepared for those things. And so that basically, absolutely keep that big vision. And if you got that magical feeling about what I need to do, that is definitely where you're going to be serving some of your purpose, right? If it doesn't go away, it's meant for you, right? Elizabeth Gilbert, if it doesn't go away, it's meant for you. And so that is it. And then the strategy, no question, you need to think a bit like a guy. And I mean that with really, because we have our strengths.
Hmm.
And thinking like with that focus in mind and knowing, yes, there's got to be plus and minuses here. As in the real books, it's got to be the numbers. You've got to know your market. You've got to know your budget. You've got to know what people will pay as much as you can at the time. And then you test it. You have to be in a position to have enough capital, enough something, enough visa, credit visa, on your visa rather. You got to know you've got enough there to do that, because you will need to test it, no question. Yeah. So those are the things that keeping that very strong vision is, for me, has always been at the heart of my experience. And then definitely following the good advice of people that say, get the strategy in place, or find the person that can do that with you. And that is powerful if we can accept that kind of assistance, because entrepreneurs sometimes we can do your own thing. We're going to do it. No, I can do my own thing. I know how to do this. No, we can't. We don't know everything. It's impossible. And so to get the right people around you that support what you see, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to your point about having a good support system around you, sometimes they can help you see things you're not able to see just because, you're either too close or you're too far
Yeah,
away. Sometimes it's just literally perspective, not so much that as an entrepreneur, it's something we missed. It's
that's
just
right.
that sometimes we can get really either deep or we can go very high and dream that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you need someone to help you find that happy medium in your business at times. And it's just
Yeah,
because these are long roads to be on.
they're very long.
Yeah,
And
a
it's
lot of
worth it.
people.
It's worth it. But you're
It
right. And you
is.
do. And like I fortunately did have, and Gord is like literally, he's, I'm the main shareholder. He's because he's my partner for life. It's just, this is your gig. You're the major shareholder. It's not him. He's though incredibly supportive.
Mm.
And he does it in a really tough way because he's an extreme masculine businessman.
Mm.
But it helps me to really stay focused on what is really important next step. Because I have a motto, it's how I live my life, is what's the right thing to do. So it could look like, what's the right thing, philosophically, what's the right thing emotionally, what's the right thing physically, or in that business that I should do next. And I have to really ask that question deep and that kind of thing. So yeah, having those people around and knowing when the next right move is to go for it.
Absolutely. And I think even the comment on something you said earlier about kind of the way we look at things, sometimes the way we look at things as females, sometimes the way we look at things as males, and then sometimes the way we just move through life. Sometimes we all have like different personalities of being extroverts or introverts or
Mm-hmm.
detail oriented and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff
Mm-hmm.
that I think is so interesting at times that, we have to flex. Sometimes our core is definitely the thing that makes our secret sauce, but we do have to know how to be a little bit more analytical at times when we're an entrepreneur, even if we are one of those people that is
Yeah.
like, I hate the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to make sure you have the visibility that you need. You want to make sure that you have that kind of look in your business so that you're not just all gut, or same thing on the other side, you don't want to be all numbers.
That's
You
right.
want to get that balance. So I think it's just interesting, when you were making the comment earlier, like, how much do you have to think like a woman and think like a guy and think like all those things are, they're
Yeah.
so tricky sometimes to
Mhm.
unwrap, that I find at times it's also learning about who you are as an entrepreneur and how much you can flex into different roles. Maybe not stay there always, but flex into different roles so that your business gets the best version of you.
Yes. Leave the ego at the door, I say. That's the best thing that you can do, literally, and really do our own work behind the scenes on ourselves. Because then we can show up in that room in ways that are about listening, and it's about truly making a difference in that room, rather than I need to share my ideas. I need this to be mine. It'll work. It'll always come back, right? Literally what we put out comes right back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the last year and moving forward.
Mhm.
Where are you headed? What's next? Or maybe let me ask a two-part question. I always love these. So bear with me. What's been kind of the last 12 months? What's been some of the things that you've been navigating through? And then what are some of those solutions, either moving forward, that you're putting in place to, combat some of those challenges, or opportunities that are coming kind of for the business? Because I know sometimes, at least for me, sometimes those friction moments yield great things. It's just that while you're feeling the friction, it's driving you crazy. But in
Mm.
the end, the output of it and the opportunity can be something amazing.
Mm-hmm. Great. So essentially we had opened, I knew that we needed to have more exposure, especially in the Vancouver area, being where we are, is to have an actual presence. So year and a half ago, probably a year ago, we ended up finding a space literally down the road from me. Oh my God, I walk to work. I'm just loving it. A
Nice.
no commute. I walk down with my dog when I get here. And it was huge choice to do, because it's opening and exposing and having a sample shop and having where people can see what we're doing. And we also do our production here. We do our delivery from here. So it was a big choice, and it's part of the model, so that people see that we actually, having our own sample shop, our own place, gives us somewhat of a retail look, even though we're not a retail company. And so that's the challenge with that, is consistently, obviously, to keep the financing going and keeping the business going, so that we have a really great space to pull through that model. That assists in every way, because if we can show that we have a real physical space, whether it's online, virtually, here we are, here's our space, here are our Virchew dogs, here's our production, here's what it looks like. It really gives a solidity. To keep all that going is tough stuff, right? There's a lot constantly, bringing in a team, working really strongly with people that you know that have the same values as you. It's been phenomenal. The biggest part that I discovered through this, and one of the toughest things, was that we vegans, of course, support this from the beginning. They support. They get their dog, they're excited, they are really, really excited. Some, however, don't just go off and start. They might go on another food, or they might cook part for their food. And we ended up learning that the vegan community there is support. However, they may not necessarily be the full-on customer for life.
Mm-hmm.
There are some, most are extremely great and committed, etc. However, it really did open my eyes, because what we found and what we were also working towards, Stephanie, is that plant-based foods for dogs, just like with humans, is incredibly good for their health. However, it absolutely can stop a food sensitivity, skin issue, tummy issue in its tracks. So this is huge. So we ended up knowing through the veterinary from years ago of doing the interviews, was they got a problem. And if we can get at the nutrition first, rather than putting drugs and steroids and all those things that we do in order to try and stop the issues. So what we ended up finding out was that the committed, customers are the ones that, of course, that are getting the results for their dogs. Yes. So absolutely can be, because a vegan has a lot of rescue dogs and senior dogs, and those dogs are doing phenomenal. Senior dogs are doing phenomenal in food.
Okay.
And things like the skin issues, no question, we're having I would say probably an 80-85% response, which is huge.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting. So what it kind of deflated my bubble, if you will, with regards to vegan, because I'm like, I just go everywhere I can that's vegan, and I'm going to support that baby no matter what. Now, not a saint, with that kind of thing, but it was like, I just like, oh, they didn't stay on, so it kind of surprised me. And so that was a big one. But we get vegan community that have a dog with a skin issue, man, they are really in. So we have some really cool things that happen there too. Anyway, so that was I think it was a tough one for me to see, because and even then, it doesn't stop us from doing, obviously marketing to the plant-based and vegan community. It was just a really big eye opener.
Yeah,
so
and I think
a tough one,
yeah, I was going to say, for a lot of people, it's an interesting thing to learn, because we assume that we have a vegan product, the vegan community, they're going to be the community that supports us forever and ever, and they're the core. And I think sometimes, number one, our vegan community is really diverse, so sometimes we forget that, there's all these different people in it.
Yeah.
And I think we also realize that, for us to spread that vegan world, that often the customer base needs to also include people who are not maybe t-shirt wearing, showing up at the protest, vegans, and maybe people who are vegetarian, or people who are vegan after 6 and so forth. So I think it's really interesting, as anyone builds their business and they learn their customer base, sometimes there is a surprise in who are those core loyal, who are those people that support you in the beginning, because there is a group that does that, but they go to the next business to support as well. And I appreciate that.
And that's the part, I appreciate that too. Exactly. Yeah. And I'm all good with that. The part is that opportunity there's a silver lining in there, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the part that what we did find out is that so many people that are not vegan want this for their dog.
Yes.
And I just read a new stat, 72% are open to a plant-based food for their pet. And that's massive. 72%. So so more and more are just going, I don't care. I just want my dog healthy.
Yes.
I don't care. Now, let's see, whether it's ground up kangaroo, which is really a big part of the skin sensitivity one, crocodile, or those kind of things, rabbits, versus, where we can let's just do some plants here.
Yeah. And let's not harm one animal to help another animal. That's the other thing.
It's an eye opener. People are really opening up to this, Stephanie. There's a lot of massive, we're waking up on this one.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that people are. And I'm really glad, when our brands can reach outside of those communities, because it helps people see veganism as a solution for many things, and it helps even reaffirm the idea that veganism is a lifestyle. You know what I mean? It's a way that we look at the world. It's a way that we care for ourselves, our companion animals. It's a
Yeah.
way we really care for the planet.
Yes,
So it
absolutely.
all starts to kind of work together. So my kitty cat joined us. I don't know if you saw her tail pop across the
Oh, I
screen.
missed that. Oh,
I didn't
yeah,
close the door all the way.
they'll find a way in. They are amazing.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, as we wrap up today's interview, I always love to make sure people can get in touch with you, get in touch with the brand. If they're looking to support you, if they're looking to just continue to learn more about your story, what is the best way for them to get in touch, whether it's website, social media, email?
Right, great. And I missed answering the question there earlier. Just wanted to say that our next thing is we're launching across Canada. So for those Canadians that are listening, that's our next goal is launching across Canada. One of our ingredients isn't allowed yet in the United States, so we have to work on that. But that's that ingredient happens to be why we're getting such great results, is what we're seeing in the nutrition programs. So definitely virchew.com, virchew.com. Absolutely email me, laura@virchew.com. And we have an incredible sales and marketing assistance, customer care. So Shannon at virchew.com if you have any questions on the customer. And we have Tatiana, she's moved here from Brazil. She's a phenomenal soul. Moved here on her own several years ago. She's a background in food engineering, and she's working with us on our veterinary program and food development. And so Tatiana at virchew.com if you have any questions on research and development. And absolutely, you can see us, find us on Google, send us a message, join our list, learn more about what we're doing. If you're in the US, we will absolutely keep in touch with you and let you know as soon as we have our foods. It's not a kibble. We have a product that you actually rehydrate. It's a beautiful food that you literally are making dinner for your dog. And so it's look at those things on the site so you get a feel for it. And a lot of things are upcoming, new website looks, all those things are always in the making. And so please watch for those things. Yes. So
Absolutely. Well, perfect. It was so great having a chance to chat with you. Sandra dropped by as well,
Hi,
and she
Sandra.
just made
Oh, she's
a
in Vancouver. Yay.
yes.
Yay,
And
Sandra.
I'm
Thank you. Woo, woo.
so glad you came. And as always, like we were saying, she's at 100% by sharing vegan products and services with non-vegans. We can increase the chance of including them in the community. So
Yes, yeah.
she was just echoing kind of what we were talking about, and it's always so good to see her stop by.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. She's great.
so I just want to just say, just congratulations on what you've built. It's so amazing to hear what you've done. It's great to see what you've developed, even with your physical space. All of those things are just
Oh,
huge
so
milestones in a business. And I
it
love the
is. And I know
it
it
is.
is. And that's
Most
what I
people don't know it, but
I don't
it's
mean to say
huge.
it like, oh yeah, it is, man. But it is. And also want to say, like, 90% of our capital has come from women, Stephanie. And it's so exciting when I can say that. And
Mm.
like that, the kind of passion that women have for this, men too. We got some amazing guys involved, but to see what's happened with women and the power of, I see this, I'm going to support this. Thank you to all of you who have done that through the years to support us to get here.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I
Thank you,
really
Stephanie.
appreciate
I
your
appreciate
time.
what you're doing.
Wonderful chit
Mhm.
chatting with you. And thank you, everyone who joined us live or whether you watched this as a replay. Let us know in the comments what you thought. Let us know if you have any questions. We will follow up in the comments as well. And as always, we just love doing these interviews, getting a chance to not only talk with vegan entrepreneurs, and in this case, talking with vegan women entrepreneurs gets me all excited. And I just really love the opportunity to kind of show how not only diverse landscape of businesses that are being created, how we're all serving the community in different ways. So thank you so much, Laura, for your time. Thank you, everyone who joined, and we'll see you in our next interview. Bye, everyone.